Welcome back to a new video, everyone. My name is Harmon. Today's video is, to be honest, one of the more sickening cases I have ever come across. This case in particular actually took place in my former hometown where I grew up in Monroe, Washington. There is an unbelievable amount of information about this case. So I'll give you guys as much details and information as I can. I got my good friend and cousin Gus from Fish and Fly with Gus here helping me out with this story. So you'll probably see him kind of throughout the video talking about his personal experiences he had as he actually met the particular officer that we're going to be talking about in the story. So you're not going to want to miss this one. Stick around.
This is Monroe Christian School. I personally went here for 8 years, 1st through 8th grade. And that was a long time ago. The school's changed a lot. But one of the things that's so interesting about this case with Officer Carlos Martinez was that he ran the D.A.R.E program for a few years here at MCS, Drug Abuse Resistance Education. I was in 6th grade at the time. And what we all remember is how outgoing and gregarious, personable, you felt like he was your friend, and he really clearly liked kids. But now, understanding the story and thinking about that and how vulnerable we all are, this was just one school. He was also the D.A.R.E officer of several of the public schools here in the Monroe School District as well. So the whole time, Officer Carlos Martinez was in his sick, twisted mind. We have to believe even back then, he was planning and conspiring and doing all these things that were grooming children for his own gain.
Carlos Martinez, again, he was sergeant here at the Monroe Police Department, and he started at the police department in 1989. He was also a D.A.R.E officer, which again was a program to kind of help keep kids away from drugs. During this D.A.R.E program, that is when he met his victim. They don't give her full name out because at the time of the crime, she was a minor. We'll be using her initials, which is AK. Again, that was in 2000 or 2001 or so. After he met her here, he ended up getting her to become like his babysitter for his kids. So if you can imagine how terrible a scenario this is, it definitely gets worse from here. Officer Martinez started kind of grooming her. Again, she was about 14 years old when this started. Told AK that, hey, after you're done babysitting the kids, and doing some of the chores around the house for me, why don't you go take a shower and clean up, you know, etc. And so she did. She took a shower, and he ended up putting a secret camera in the bathroom and videotaping her while she was getting in and out of the shower. And so that was kind of one of the first sexual exploits or voyeurism that he committed. And he did that on dozens of occasions. She would come over and babysit his kids. His wife would be potentially out of town or, you know, doing some other errands, and she wouldn't be home. And so he would be essentially alone with AK and, of course, his 2 own children. But he would do many different sexual types of things to her, including dry humping her, fondling her, making her fondle him, etc., unbeknownst again to his wife. So in late 2003 or early 2004, AK told Carlos Martinez's wife, her name was Julie West, she told Julie that she had quote-unquote accidentally cut herself by running into a knife, which again makes no sense, but we can only summarize that Carlos had cut her in some fashion. In May of 2004, Julie went on vacation, leaving Carlos and AK home alone. AK described when she and Carlos were watching a movie together, she said that he touched her hair and licked her fingers, but also that he essentially dry humped her and made her feel his erection. When his wife returned back from her vacation, she actually discovered a love note from AK to her husband Carlos. And she also found one of those bathroom videos that Carlos had taken of AK. She found that video on his computer. She of course confronted him about, why do you have a naked video of this minor girl on your computer? And he just claimed simply that it was something nice to look at, and that he had taken that video to make sure that she wasn't actually cutting herself. Not too long after that occasion, AK actually moved with her family from Monroe to Eastern Washington. However, Carlos still kept in contact with her, and in February of 2007, they actually began a consensual sexual relationship, as AK had just turned 18 at that time. Then in fall of 2009, the Army actually ended up recalling Carlos to again be active duty in the Army. And so he of course moved from Monroe, Washington down to San Antonio, Texas. AK actually moved down to Texas to live with him. So in November of 2011, Carlos and AK's relationship dissolved, and Carlos ended up giving AK all the video recordings that he had taken of her in the bathroom back in 2004. AK testified that Carlos told her he wanted to watch the tapes one last time in order to pleasure himself while watching the tapes. A short time after that, AK ended up contacting the Texas police and turning those tapes over. That is when the police finally investigated all the different sexual crimes that Carlos Martinez did. So of course the Texas police obtained a warrant to search Carlos's computer at his home, and of course they found the possession of child pornography. So they attempted to charge Carlos with that same thing, possession of child pornography. The grand jury refused to indict him, and the case was actually dismissed. However, the police made a mirror image of his computer and hard drive at Washington State Patrol's request, as again, the Washington State Patrol and Texas police departments were all working together trying to, of course, arrest Carlos. So they made a mirror image of his hard drive, and they were able actually to finally get a warrant, and the Washington State Patrol was finally able to search all the different hard drives and computers that Carlos had. So they finally were able to charge him with 2 counts of voyeurism, 2 counts of child molestation, 1 count of rape of a child in the 3rd degree, 1 count of possession of depictions of a minor engaged in sexually explicit content. So he was charged with a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, though, the state eventually dismissed the molestation charges and the rape charges, and so they only were able to really try him on 1 count of the voyeurism and 1 count of the possession of child pornography. And the reason kind of behind why they had to drop some of those other charges was because the statute of limitations ran out on all those other crimes, because AK decided to not tell anyone for essentially the better part of a decade of what Carlos did. And so because she took so long to tell the police, the statute of limitations ran out. And again, I'm not blaming AK whatsoever. I'm just stating that is the facts. That is what happened. So the jury did find Carlos guilty on, again, the 1 count of voyeurism and the 1 count of possession of child pornography. He was sentenced to only 14 months in prison, which means that at the time of this recording, he is already out of prison.
I have a personal story that happened right here where we're standing. Back in the 90s, I was driving my first car. I had this Ford Escort, and I still had my permit. I came here with either my mom or my dad, I don't remember which, but we would come here frequently. We used to love Jack in the Box. I locked my keys in the car. Didn't realize it until we came outside, tried to get in. It's like, oh crap. Well, back in the day, you could just call the police and they would come down, and if they were in a good mood, didn't have a lot going on, they pull out their Slim Jim and just let you in. Guess who answered the call when I called 911 to get a lockout? Officer Carlos Martinez. I remember it clearly because we liked him. From my experience as a student at Monroe Christian School in the D.A.R.E program, hey, long time no see, thank you so much, it's good to see you. He was so outgoing, persuasive, personable, kind, all these things.
This was one of the most bizarre and frustrating and sickening cases that I think me and Gus have ever worked on, have ever gone and tried to film for you guys. So again, feel free, check out Gus from Fish and Fly with Gus, his channel again, make sure you check it out. So yeah, so anyway, we're gonna head out of here. Thank you guys for watching. If you're new around here, just make sure you subscribe and check out Gus again, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.